You can throw all the Narcan out the window that you want. It has to be targeted, right? You can't just give it to anybody. You can, and that's effective, but what we did was we worked with a system called OB Maps, and we laid a map over Cuba County, and we saw where the hot spots were where people were overdosing. And so we would get deployed to those areas and set up tables or knock on doors or talk to people, businesses, what have you, and say, hey, have you ever heard of Narcan? No, and we'd have those conversations. And for the last 4 years, we've done very well. We have a bunch of different strategies. This is one of them. I'm not sure if everyone's seen these. These are called the lock boxes. You work for the county?
Library.
Okay.
We have that.
Yep, she has those in the bathrooms at the library. What this is a stigma reducer. A lot of people don't want to fill out that form, right? Because their nephew, son, neighbor, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, mom might be using opioids, and they don't want anybody to know because they work for the county, or they're a teacher, or they're a librarian, or whatever they are, or they're nothing to them, right? And so they don't want to put their name on paper. So we started these in the county office building and hung them only in the staff bathrooms to see if the staff would take the Narcan out of the box, and they did. And so what we did was we started buying hundreds of these, and we have, I think, 280 of them in Cuba County, and they're everywhere. They're in libraries, they're in businesses, they're in outside people's houses, COB,
Even the
hotels, motels, yup, they're everywhere. And I go through every week to week and a half and check the boxes to make sure there's Narcan in them. Each and every box I check, and if it doesn't have Narcan and resources in them, I refill them. They're in gas stations, so that's that. Any questions so far? How am I doing? So far? These are fentanyl test strips. These are free if you folks want them. Fentanyl test strips will test your drug if there's fentanyl in it. Big stigma behind these, right? Anyone know why?
It must be associated with drugs.
The assumption is you're using. Yeah, that sounds about right. The idea is that you are using, and you need these fentanyl test strips, right? Here's the thing, people aren't gonna stop using drugs. They're gonna use drugs. Should they die? Right? A lot of you were here last time I presented, right? And my story is a pretty good one, right? I'm a guy who ended up under a bridge, doing drugs, drinking, changed my whole life, went back to school, got a master's degree, blah, 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 right? The point is that somebody reached out to me and helped me, right? And people that are addicted to opioids, it's very difficult for them to get sober, to get cleaned up. Why? Because most of them have experienced a ton of trauma, right? And so you take the drug away, and what do they get left with? Trauma. And there aren't really resources to help everybody. So they send people to treatment for 30 days, then they come back to their community, and the hope is that they can get it together. A lot of them don't know how to ask for help or don't want to ask for help or what have you. That was my story. I didn't want to ask for help. My little sister pulled me out from under the bridge, and I don't know what happened. Something clicked, and I decided to clean my life up.
Well, the 30-day thing is also tied to insurance. Back in the 80s, when I was working at the Y, when we were dealing with addiction, one of the things that meant for us was the fact that all of a sudden insurance companies said, well, everybody can be treated and changed in 30 days. So they refused to pay for more than 30 days.
Correct.
Prior to that, there was no time limit.
That's correct. That's because there was when I first started so I started this work with Nick's Ride, way back in the day. And you couldn't get people into treatment. So we figured out a way to streamline access to treatment through Nick's Ride to get people help that they needed or wanted. What I see as an outsider and watching, most of the people that go to treatment, I'd say 99% of the people that go to treatment and come back to the same community end up using again. 99% of the people that go to treatment and go to a different community stay sober. So when you bring all that stuff to a table, such as this one, you folks are very receptive. Some folks are not receptive to those thoughts, right? And that's just the truth. And so when I was working with Helper Inc., that's what I did. I'm an advocate first and foremost, right? That's what I do. I help people. I don't let people get treated like crap. I don't care if you're using drugs, tricking, or whatever you're doing. You're a human being, right? And you should not be treated awful, no matter your stature. A lot of people think that it doesn't affect them. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has had some kind of run-in with opioids, whether it's a family member or a friend of a family member or somebody that's had addiction issues to opioids. Opioids are killing people, right? They're smoking a joint and dying. Should a kid smoke a joint and die? That's my thing. Should they? I don't think so. Some people are still out in the community, right, that I talk to, that still think that if somebody uses drugs, they know that what can happen and they should probably die. That's a tough conversation. Narcan saved my life. 7 doses it took to bring me back, right? 7 doses, paddles, the whole deal, right? And it saved my life. And so if I can change my life, so can other people with the right support. So the idea is to bring this message to other Rotaries and other communities and say, what gives? Why aren't we reducing overdose deaths? What's happening? Well, I'll be honest with everyone. What's happening is a county gets money, opioid settlement funds, right? And they figure out what they think is right to do with the money. Whether it's give it to an agency for Narcan distribution or give it to an agency for treatment issues or mental health issues, what have you. The one thing that we learned out of this work is that you cannot recover from death. Period. If you're dead, you cannot recover. Right? Does that make sense? So if you have Narcan, you can save a life, right? And every time that you use Narcan, a lot of times it's the same people that are using illicit drugs that need to be Narcan. That's another time to engage with the individual, another time to put your, stuff aside and say, do you need help? What can I do? Right? And so that's what happened to me. And I've been pretty effective on every level, the national level, the state level, the local level, and advocating. And what I see is a lot of people do not like to hear the truth. And the truth is, right outside this community, you can't get Narcan. North Carolina, you can't get Narcan, but the government's saying that you can, right? And there's all these barriers. So my goal is to go to those one community in each state, document it all, record people, take what's happening, whatever, and then present it, right, to the government or whoever will listen. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah. You've got to change the stigma of Narcan. There's a tremendous amount of people who believe it's an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a salvation, it's an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
And until that gets changed, then that's a barrier, that's a wall that's tough to climb. That has to be done.
So try to tell that to a mom who's lost their kid, right? That didn't have a chance to be Narcan, right? And that's the message, really, is people are dying. Whether it's enabling them or not, it doesn't matter. Do they deserve to die? I don't think so.
This goes way beyond your child going out and having smoking weed out of your sight or having a drink of alcohol. You know they're coming home. Well, not always with alcohol, but this is just taking our children right out.
Yeah.
Not even a chance to end our children.
My daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, she hasn't overdosed, but she damn sure has had run-ins with drugs, and my daughter, right? I can handle it, I'm a grown man, my daughter, right? I'm sure if you have kids, right, or neighbors that have kids, you understand that thought, right? My daughter, not my daughter, right? I'll do anything to save her, right? And I think that that's the way we should be with our community members too. We should do anything to save them, within reason, right? Not gonna put somebody in my house that's withdrawn probably. It's gonna be a rough road, But so in those bags that I gave everyone, there's Narcan, there's resources that you can use and reach out to if you have somebody that may be struggling down the road, your neighbor, your nephew, son, what have you. Reducing the stigma is kind of what this is about, right? If you are in Wegmans and you have Narcan in your car, right? And you walk in the bathroom and you see somebody potentially overdosed, what might you do? If you have Narcan, you might get the Narcan, right? If you don't have Narcan, you might call 911. And what happens when you call 911? There's a time lapse. And in a lot of cases, people die. If you have Narcan, you can save their life. More innocent bystanders, that's you folks, more innocent bystanders are administering Narcan in Cuba County than first responders. More innocent bystanders are administering Narcan than first responders. That's how we're saving lives. Yes, ma'am.
So you feel like it should be in every restaurant bathroom,
Yes,
you know, any public
yes,
space, because you know, we don't know, and we do know, that, I mean, I do know a woman that was my hairdresser, you know, the same thing. Her son got fentanyl 2 days before, and it was, you know, it was laced in something else. And, you know, it is a big killer, you know, and it doesn't give anyone a chance for a U-turn. And what I remember is most people that are going through rehab usually need 2 or 3 return visits before, you know, and
it's actually 6.
so
Statistics say 6.
So the thing is, like you're saying, we need to buy them time so that their head of accepting, of changing their life can catch up with. We're giving them time is what we're giving them. So I do understand what you're saying, but it has to be packaged differently.
Well, and that's the thing, look, it started out first teaching people CPR,
Right.
okay? Then we introduced AEDs. Then, and then AEDs only administered by professionals. Now we have, I just installed 4 AEDs in 4 of the churches in my parish. And inside of them is also a mask, a non-rebreathing mask. And I just asked them, I'm gonna be putting one of these in each one of those emergency kits. It has to be considered as part of the process. It's gotta be the normalization of, so if I'm gonna do AED, I can't do it without CPR, but it's an addendum to CPR.
Right.
This has to be addendum to the same process.
Yeah, it's all.
The only thing with this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it only works with opioids.
Correct.
So somebody who's overdosed on something other than an opioid, this is not gonna help. But it's not gonna hurt either. So you can't make a mistake, okay? I can't make a mistake with an AED that tells me everything I need to do, as long as I pay attention and listen. I can't make a mistake with CPR except maybe not do it as effective or as efficient as I possibly can, but I'm doing something.
Correct. So yes, sir.
Just for clarification, by opioids, we're talking, I think of heroin.
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid,
Correct.
or is it,
Yes, sir.
what, are there other examples of opioids?
Yeah, pills. So Oxycontin, Roxycontin, Opiates, hydrocodone, Percocet, right.
Wow.
Yep, and there's actually a new analog of fentanyl that's on the street that's 50 times stronger than carfentanil. Carfentanil is 50 times stronger than heroin. Does that make sense? And then, I'm sorry, carfentanil is 50 times stronger than fentanyl, and fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin. So we're in for.
Statistically, the current, from what my son, the police officer, just told me the other night, was that 99% of the heroin on the market right now, the illicit drug market, is about 90% fentanyl and maybe 5% heroin, which is why so many people are dying.
Yep, so to create fentanyl is done in a bathtub with chemicals. To create heroin is done with a poppy plant. So you have to grow the poppy plant, process the poppy plant, make the heroin, when you can just make bathtubs full of fentanyl and get the same effect. And better, they say. Yes, sir.
I'm still confused about fentanyl, even though you can make it in a bathtub. So
Yep.
apparently the reason it's so popular is because it's easy to make, easy to distribute.
It's cheaper,
Why,
too.
what effect does it have? Like, oh man, I had a real great shot of
Wait a second.
No, you're dead.
I think there's some confusion here, because I don't think people intentionally take fentanyl.
No.
Unless it's prescribed by a physician as something else.
That's where you're wrong.
But, do people intentionally take fentanyl?
Yes,
I'm not aware of that.
yes. So the fentanyl that you get from the doctor is different than the fentanyl that you get on the street.
But you can get fentanyl on the street in and of itself?
Yes.
I thought it was only as an unknown additive to more conventional street drugs.
That too. So fentanyl wasn't killing enough people, so then let's put it in marijuana, right? And the idea is to get people addicted, right? Get them to keep coming back. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, cause if you want them to keep coming back and buying drugs from you and you're in business, why kill your customers?
You're turning them into addicts.
Well,
Yeah, but you're gonna kill them if you put fentanyl in and then they can't come back and buy more drugs.
No.
Not necessarily.
so here's the thing, people that are selling marijuana don't know that there's fentanyl in the marijuana, right? People that are selling fentanyl know there's fentanyl in the marijuana, right? And so we're at war. We're at war. We could come up with a lot of different reasons of why and this and that, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, it's here. In fact, China is now sending chemists to the United States, never mind the border, sending chemists to the United States to buy houses and make the stuff right here in our neighborhood.
Say it's coming out
So
of China.
statistically, 90% of the fentanyl comes into the United States
True.
through, Mexico.
That's not true, but that's a ploy, honestly.
Okay.
A lot of the drugs locally that are coming through are coming actually through Canada, across Lake Ontario, into Rochester, down 390 and being distributed all over the state and all over the Northeast Seaboard from there.
I got 5 minutes, folks, so,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Oh, I know some marijuana is legal.
Mhm.
I have a godson with a glioblastoma and he takes it. But you're talking, but smoking, is that illegal? Is that legal to smoke marijuana?
Yep.
And if it is, are there any standards by the government for this?
So there's one legal, marijuana place that you can get it for, fun, right? I forget what the other word is. Recreation, yeah. There's one place in New York you can get it, it's in Syracuse. There's also, medical places that you can get marijuana or derivatives of marijuana. You get a card from your doctor, the doctor says, yep, you need marijuana, and you go to these medical places. That stuff it's very highly regulated. The place that is legal that distributes just regular marijuana, I've never been there. I will say that there are places all over Auburn that distribute, weed and what have you, and they don't have licensing for it, and I don't know what's in it.
It's fake.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, so just,
And we're in a unique situation too, because there are marijuana distribution centers that are on the Indian reservation.
that's correct.
And that is, and I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong, I'm just saying that they are there, they don't fall under the same,
Yep.
Situation.
They're not
You-
regulated.
One question you put out was, and I don't know if I got an answer, how do you know if somebody's having an overdose?
So that's where we're at. So does anyone know, has anyone here ever seen someone overdose opioids?
When I was a nurse, yeah, lots in New York, and we didn't have narcan back when I was a nurse, and they died.
So in Cuba County, we say to identify a potential opioid overdose, anything that doesn't look normal, right? You say the person might have overdose on opioid. By not normal, I mean laying on the floor, hunched over in a chair, hunched over in a car, in a snowbank, under a bench, in a park on the ground, right? But if your nephew's visiting from Florida and sleeping on the couch at 3 o'clock in the morning, probably normal, right? Big difference between normal and abnormal. I say probably normal because I don't know, I'm not there, right? But at the end of the day, if somebody's hunched over in their car, that's not normal, right? What's your name?
Mike.
Mike, go.
It could be a heart attack.
So pretend there's somebody laying over there on the ground, and you say to yourself, now while you do, say anything that doesn't look normal, say that person might be overdosed. So then you start walking towards the person, right? And you start screaming at them. So go ahead, scream. Hey!
Scream?
Yeah.
Hey, you okay?
Now, do you have kids?
Yeah.
Okay. If your kid was overdosed from a laced drink, would you want somebody saying, hey, are you okay? No, right?
More action?
Correct.
So at what point do you call 911?
I'll get there. First, get through the first part, Mike.
Let him go.
Right? You're walking towards the person. Do it. Do it.
Do what?
Scream.
Oh. Scream?
Yeah. Hey, are you okay?
Hey, are you okay?
There you go. As you're walking towards the person, right?
Okay.
Hey, are you okay? Hey, are you okay?
Hey, you okay?
Right. You get to the person, you get no response. What happens? You touch them on the shoulder firmly. Hey, are you okay? No response means no response. If you do not get a response, you administer Narcan. The folks that I gave the Narcan to, can you open it, please? Nope, nope, not the blue bags, just the separate ones, so people know who they are, I'm sorry. Yeah. So there's three, so there's 1, 2, and there's a third one somewhere? Who has the third one? You
Oh,
do.
sorry, it's
That's
right
okay. Could you hold it up in the air, please? Put your thumb on the red plunger. Right? And so you get no response, you stick the white tip in the nose, push the red button. Go ahead.
Push the red button.
That's simple. Right? That's simple.
What if they had a heart attack? Can
I'm
you
not
hurt
done.
them?
Not done. I got you, man. Don't worry. So you administer Narcan before you call 911. The reason for that is, from the beginning of an overdose to the death is about 12 minutes. Right? So you could be encountering the person 11 minutes and 30 seconds, and you call 911, and 911 is trained to do something different. Look at their fingernails, look at their pupils, look at their feet, listen for shallow breathing. All the while, the person is dying, right? So you administer Narcan, and what it does is you have opioid receptors in your brain. It kicks the opioids off the opioid receptors, blocks those receptors. In turn, the brain starts to tell the person to start breathing and start coming to, right? So administer the first dose, then call 911 unless you have someone with you. If someone is with you, they can call 911, usually your part, right? Wait 3 minutes, administer the second dose. Okay, say the person comes to. Anyone heard what that looks like?
Pretty violent.
Pretty violent, pretty violent. Anyone else? Picture this. You know everyone in here pretty much? Some of the people?
Yeah.
Okay, some of the people. You know everyone in here?
Yeah.
Let's say you came in here and you were drinking a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Right? And you fell on the floor. Somebody laced your coffee.
Oh.
Right? And you wake up and everybody in this room, plus the cops, plus the fire department, plus the ambulance, are all surrounded you. And they're like, you wake up and you're like, where am I? Would that be scary?
Very.
Very scary, right? And what happens is the fire department, no fault of their own, they have a job to do, right? They have to get the person to the hospital so they don't go back into an overdose. So they're trying to get the person into the whatever, gurney, the ambulance, what have you. And the person's like, wait a minute, I don't even know what just happened, right? And so they call that pushing back, or what's the other word? Combatant, right? And it ends up causing an issue. And the idea is to take a step back. Remember, it's a human. No matter their story, it's a human, right? And treat them how you want to be treated. I just administered Narcan. I think you overdosed. EMTs are on the way, right? I don't want help. Okay, well, they're coming anyway. I mean, I'm not gonna hold you here, but you know, they're coming. Here's the deal. If somebody takes off, it's not your job to hold them there. You did your part. Also, Narcan wears off 30 to 90 minutes. So the person could potentially go back into the overdose. Make sense?
So you hit them right before that, or?
Nope, you just let them know that. So if they come to and they want to take off, and a lot of people do because they're scared. Also, they're in what's thrown into what's called precipitated withdrawal. Does everyone here have the flu? Who hasn't had the flu? It's flu times 100 instantly. That's how they feel. So they feel like that got the flu times 100, and there's a bunch of people surrounding them telling them to get in a car, truck, or whatever, and they don't even know what the heck just happened. Right? So the idea is to treat them like a human being. It doesn't matter if they overdose, it doesn't matter if you had to do Narcan, it doesn't matter, right? If the person doesn't come to, in a lot of cases it doesn't because the fentanyl is so strong, remember this, if they're savable, it will save them. It's still kicking opioids off of opioid receptors, and what that does is it stops the opioid overdose from going forward. You catch them at 11 minutes and 30 seconds, and you give a Narcan, it stops it from going forward and starts pulling them out. If you're having a heart attack, a brain aneurysm, you cut off your big toe, you're swearing a lot, whatever, Narcan cannot hurt you. Dogs can eat it, kids can drink it, I wouldn't give it to either. It will not hurt you. The only thing that it does is it kicks opioids off of opioid receptors, and turns safe to life.
Molly, one thing is, I'm wondering if we should put gloves in these things, because, the reason I say that is because one of my son's fellow officers responded, they gave somebody Narcan, they had fentanyl on his clothes, the officer got it in his hands, my son had to administer Narcan to his partner, because the opioid absorbs into your skin that fast, And the fentanyl that guy had was so freaking pure, and the officers were sweating. Sweat is a carrier, helps get the fentanyl in his body faster. And my son was dealing with a double emergency. His partner's down on the ground from a fentanyl overdose, and he's got a guy he already gave a narcan to, who's starting to wake up, who was known to be super belligerent when he came out. And my son's like,
What do you say first?
you know, catch 22.
So here's the deal. Is there anyone in this room that after this training is not gonna carry the Narcan? Was that pretty effective?
Yeah.
Did you guys get it?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
So if we leave it in our car,
It will freeze.
okay, that's what the question, will it freeze or heat and cold will affect it?
106 degrees for extended periods of time, and starts to break down the molecular structure, of which it's still 85% effective. So if you have it in your car and it's frozen, it will not work, but it can thaw out and you can use it. You can't use it in an emergency. I usually carry it in my pocket. Some ladies carry it in their purse. Some guys have it in their gym bag and the car, what have you, right? So the idea of giving this training was to give all you folks an idea of what's happened here in Cuba County, and understand that we have reduced overdose deaths. My goal is to go out to other Rotaries and talk to them about reducing overdose deaths in their community. And Helper One, the new company, could use your support. Any way you could help. So, yes, sir.
What is, the school district doing?
So Auburn City School District has the red boxes. BOCES has the red boxes. I'm going to train Union Springs this week. Cato High School actually had a student that saved a life with Narcan. They have the red boxes. I'm going there the 16th to train a bunch of staff and students, and yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Is there a cost for Red Box?
It's free. Everything that I do and provide is free.
Is it funded by grant or how is it funded?
It's funded by opioid settlement funds, which came from the Sackler family, right, that caused this mess, right? And it's also, part of it's also paid by the BJA, Bureau of Justice Administration grant. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.